Welcome to High Point University's Leadership and Life Skills series. Join us now as I interview Bob Brown, the chairman of the board at High Point University and a distinguished American.
High Point University presents A Conversation with Bob Brown and Nito Cobain is a production of UNC TV in association with High Point University.
Hello, I'm Nito Cobain, president of High Point University, and we welcome you to this program. When you think of the American dream, you think of people who started with nothing and achieved greatness. But when you think of the American dream, really, you think about people who achieved their goals. When you achieve your goals, you've done something important in life. Our guest here today achieved his goals in ample supply. And along that journey of achieving his goals, inspired millions of people, changed this world for the better. His influence and impact are known by so many. He is, in fact, the chairman of the board of trustees of High Point University. I'm proud on the campus of HPU to welcome right here and right now, Dr. Bob Brown. Bob, welcome. So, Bob, it's so good to have you here. And I got so many questions for you. I think this hour is going to pass so fast, it's incredible. When was the first time you met Nelson Mandela?
The first time I met him was in jail at Pollsmoor Prison. I was in South Africa, and Ms. Mandela said, you know, since you're going to be our children will be in your care in America, they were here with me for 7 years, then you need to know Mandela. You need to know him. And I'm going to petition President Botha for you to go inside to the prison to see him. Well, I thought that was a folly because nobody had seen Mandela except Ms. Mandela and 2 or 3 of the children in the 23 years. He had been in prison 23 years. Up that time, and nobody wouldn't let nobody talk to him. And so I just dissed it. And so she said, I'm gonna have my lawyer to petition President Botha. So the night that I was getting ready to leave, I was in the room packing up my clothes, getting ready to come back to America the next day. And this fellow calls, his name was Neil Van Herten. That's the way he introduced himself. He says, I'm an assistant to President Botha, and President Botha has granted you permission to go inside Pollsmoor Prison to see Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela had been in prison almost 24 years, and nobody, nobody, ambassadors or nobody had seen Nelson.
How old was Nelson Mandela at the time?
He was in his in his early 70s.
And how old were you?
At that time, I was probably about 60, 50s, late 50s, early 60s.
And what were you doing in Africa, in South Africa?
I was in South Africa because I had several clients, several major companies who had some interest there, and they were having some difficulty. In fact, their difficulty was on this side, not on that side. And I was over there trying to establish some relationships, both with the apartheid government people and with Mrs. Mandela and the others. And so I went there for that, and then I took Mrs. King there. She couldn't get into the country she wanted to go, and I took her there. And then as a result of that, I took her to meet Mrs. Mandela and all of that. And
this is Martin Luther King's wife.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife.
How did you meet Martin Luther King?
I met him in Atlanta. I was down there. I was representing, I think, Woolworth and A&P and maybe one other client. And I was having lunch in a restaurant, in a black restaurant, because at that time, those were the only restaurants that were available to black people. I don't care whether you were a king or whether you were just a guy off the street. So we were all in this restaurant, and I see Dr. Wyatt Walker in there. And
who's he?
Dr. Wyatt Walker was the chief of staff to Dr. King. And I had known him from Virginia Union University, where I first went to college. And he tells me, he said, look, you ought to come up to our office and meet Dr. King. He would love to meet you. And I said, okay, I'll come up there when I'm finished. So I went up there and I walked in and Dr. King said, Bob Brown, I'm so happy to see you here. He said, we need your help so bad. He said, we're in deep difficulty and trouble and we need to get some support.
So Bob, how did you meet Richard Nixon? I'm coming back to all this, don't worry, I'm jumping around for a reason.
Oh, okay.
How did you meet Richard Nixon?
Well, I met him, I had been working, initially I had been working for Bobby Kennedy in the campaign in '68. And Bobby Kennedy was killed. And then I ran into some of the people who were with Nixon, and they recruited me to give them some of my advice and counsel on a 2-day-a-week thing. And one thing led to another, and then they found out that Nixon was going to be in big trouble in New York, upstate New York, because Humphrey had been in there, who was running for president, and he couldn't get off, they wouldn't let him, demonstrators wouldn't let him off his plane, so he just jumped and left. And so Nixon was to go there in about 10 days. And so they wanted somebody to go in there and see if Nixon could go in there without having a lot of difficulty. So they picked me to go there. And I went there and I paved the way for him to go in there without the demonstrators taking his head off or him going into town.
On this campus, we are focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be. There's a growth mindset in our institutional DNA.
Hi, I'm Steve Wozniak, the Woz, and I'm proud to be High Point University's Innovator in Residence.
Hi, I'm Cent Marshall, CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, and I am proud to be High Point University's Sports Executive in Residence. Welcome to HPU.
I'm Mark Randolph, and I'm proud to be the Entrepreneur in Residence at the premier life skills university, High Point University.
Back to Nelson Mandela. Somebody knocked at your door that night in the hotel?
Yes. When on this occasion, the people came to me, they said, we are President Borta's security people. And so I peeped through the hole. I asked them who they were, and they were talking. And so I peeped the little peephole, and I saw these two great big white guys out there, you know. And they had suit and ties on. But
What floor were you on in the hotel?
I was on about the 3rd floor. Or
So you could have jumped out of the window if you wanted
I
to.
could have jumped out the window, which I was thinking about. Because they were killing people.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't like it was just a regular deal.
Sure.
They were killing people. So I said, show me some identification. So they pulled out something that said State House. So I said, okay. So I opened the door, and they said, Mr. Brown, we're from President Borta's office. And President Borta knows that you're in his country, and he wants to see you. I said, President Borta doesn't even talk to his own cabinet. I said, he wants to see me, you know? And he's killing people. That was the other part of it. So I said, okay. I mean, I didn't have a choice. So I immediately called Mrs. Mandela and told her. She said, you must go see him. See him, Bob. There's no telling what he wants. So he doesn't talk to anybody, which he didn't. So the evening came, and I went over there, and the fellow, one of his assistants, met me at the gate, and he said, Mr. Brown, and this was the strangest thing about the whole thing. He said, I want to take you up to Mr. Pick Borta's office, and Mr. Pick Borta is going to take you over to see President Borta. Now, they were not related, but Pick Borta was the number 2 man in the country.
I see. Was he also killing people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was not even a problem with him.
It was a scary time.
It was a frightening time.
Yeah.
And so he said, so I went up to Mr. Big Border's office, and he said, I'm so delighted to see you, Mr. Brown. He said, I'm going to walk you over to President Border's office. But those of us who are here with President Border, we have no idea what he wants to talk to you about. We didn't even know that he wanted to see you. We just found out. And he said, when I take you to his office, he will not let me stay in there for the meeting. If you will come back and brief us on what he wanted, we would be eternally grateful. Now, this is the number 2 man in the country. I'm trying to figure out what on earth have I got myself into now.
I'm sitting here thinking, it's amazing you're alive, Bob.
It is. And it was amazing I got out of there alive.
Yes.
But he took me on downstairs to the president's office, and we walked in, and the president came in a few minutes later, and he introduced himself. I said, Brown, I'm President Border. And he shook my hand, and I said, thank you for inviting me. And then Pig Border, who's standing there, the number 2 man in the country, he said, Mr. President, do you want me to stay for this meeting? He said, oh no, Pig, you going back to your office. Just like that. The number 2 man in the country. I said, oh Lord, I know I'm in trouble now. If he treats the number 2 man like this, I knew I was in trouble. So he left, and we sat down and talked for almost 2 hours. He wanted to know about me, my life. And I think he wanted to know why I was there. Why was I putting my neck in a noose there in South Africa? Because blacks could not go do anything. They were putting them in jail. They were killing them, everything. And so I told him about my life, and I told him that he should release Mr. Mandela. And then that's when he really got angry. He got angry. He started shaking his head, and he said, Mr. Brown, I tried to give that man his freedom. He wouldn't take it. I said, Mr. President, you tried to give him the freedom in his own country. I said, he's a proud South African just as you are. And I said, the only thing necessary for the freedom of South Africa for all people is for the blacks and the whites and the Indians and everybody come together and make this a great country. I said, God has given you all everything. You've got gold and diamonds and everything. And you got wonderful people here. So why not just do that? And he never answered me,
But you did go see Nelson Mandela in jail.
I saw him in jail.
You walked in the front, you saw the warden, and then what happened?
Well, I walked in there, and when I walked up to the building, I went through the big gate. They had these guns and everything there. And I'm trying to figure out whether it was going to kill me right there or wait till I get inside. So I walked in, and they said, you go right up there to that building. So I got to the building, and as soon as I got up one little step, as I went in to go in, the big door opened, boom, just like that. And this big, tall, white guy walks out, and he has braids in his cap, and he looks at me, and he puts his hand out like this. He said, Mr. Brown, welcome to Woolsmore Prison. He said, we are all so grateful for what you're doing for Mr. Mandela and his children and his family. So thank you.
Speaking of his children, you helped bring them to America.
Yeah, I brought them
and
here.
Put them in colleges.
I paid for their schooling in Boston University and for the other children.
And you were on the board of trustees of Boston
I was
University.
on the board of trustees.
You're good friends of Dr. Silber.
Yeah, John Silver. He was a very good friend.
Okay, so you walked in, and at what point did you see Nelson Mandela?
Well, they brought him down. They said, you go.
Oh, they brought him to you?
They brought him down. Yeah, they brought him down from his cell.
Okay.
So the warden told me, go in that little room right there, and there'll be a little table and chairs there, and Mr. Mandela would be brought down right now. So Mr. Mandela, a few minutes later, they bring Mr. Mandela into the room.
So describe that for us. You're seated on the chair.
Yeah,
You
I'm
open the
standing
door, they
there
bring him
by a
in.
little table.
What were you feeling at that moment, Bob?
I was, my feelings went back to Martin Luther King Jr. and the relationship, those years I had with him, and traveling and going to jail and all that. And here I am inside the prison. I'm inside the prison where the only time any black folk were in there was going to prison. They were going to be tortured or something. And I'm in this prison. I said, you know, and I started praying. I said, only God can do this. There's no other way. And so after a few minutes later, Mr. Mandela walks in. And he was trim and everything, and he looked good.
What were your first words to him or his to you?
Well, he walked in and he just opened his arms. He said, Bob, thank you. He opened his arms and he hugged me just as tight as I've ever been hugged by anybody. And he cried, and I cried. Because nobody had seen him except his immediate family, 23 years.
And what did you talk about?
Well, we talked about everything because they let me spend at least an hour and a half with him. And nobody in the 20-some years he'd been in prison had spent more than 15 minutes with him. His family. That's the only people who saw him, his immediate family. 15 minutes. They let me spend, and we talked about everything. We started talking about his family. He thanked me for what I'd done for him and some of the other people who I'd given shoes and clothes, and I'd already started taking a few books into the schools and that kind of thing, and where they had no books. And so he thanked me profusely, and he said, you know, I'm so grateful to you. And then he started talking about things that I didn't feel like he knew anything about. He said, Bob, I know that you work with Dr. King, you travel with him. I said, yeah, that's right. He said, yeah, I've read about a lot of stuff, and I've heard a lot about over the little radio that I have in there. And he said, how is Mrs. King? I told him she was doing fine, and she sent her best regards. And then we talked about everything. But the thing that impressed me most is that he didn't have any kind of hate in him. This man had been in prison for 20-some years. Some of his family and best friends had been killed, shot down by the border people, and he didn't have any kind of, he was there telling me, he said, Bob, he said that the thing necessary for South Africa is that the good white people and the good black people come together. He said, we can do anything. We can have a great nation. That's the kind of talk he was giving me. Here's a man that's been in prison, been tortured, beaten, and his wife, Ms. Mandela, was banished and in prison where she was tortured and beaten. And he's talking to me about how the good white people and the good black people can come together. That had to take a strong man, because I don't know if, I'm pretty strong. I don't know if I would have been able to do that.
Yeah, but you're very much like that. You are the grandson of a woman who brought you up and who suffered through tough times in America. You were at the Emerywood Country Club when, dare I say, you were not treated with the fullness of respect. You were a High Point police officer who became an FBI person who went on to rise to the highest levels. You were a black kid in the South when black kids in the South were not treated nicely. You were that black kid who went with was it your uncle, or when he went to work at Tomlinson or somewhere, and you would go and sit next to him
That's
and
my
watch
grandfather.
him labor. Grandfather?
My grandfather, he ran the boiler
Yeah.
room.
So you wrote this book. You can't go wrong doing right. Why did you title it that way?
I titled it that way because that's what my grandmother used to tell my late older brother and I. She would tell us all the time. When we were going to school in the morning, she would wrap us up and put some of that old ham between some biscuits and put it in a old paper bag. And she would say, you boys go off to school and just do the right thing, because you can't go wrong doing right. And she would tell us that all the time growing up. I mean, you know, in helping people in the community, we would share our food. And the people who had no food, or very little of anything. And I would ask my grandmother, I said, Mama, why are we giving away all of our food and stuff here? I said, we are poor just like these people are poor. She said, boy, have you ever missed any meals here? I said, no, ma'am. She said, hadn't God provided for you? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, always remember that life is all about serving and giving. She said, just do the right thing, because you can't go wrong doing right. She must have told me that 10 million times.
When it's all said and done, I hope 50 years from now, what is it you want people to remember you?
Well, I think the best thing would be for them to remember me as a servant of God, a servant of the people who tried to do the right thing, because that's what my grandmother taught me over and over again. She must have, the reason why I titled this book, You Can't Go Wrong Doing Right, because my grandmother told me that going out the door in the morning. I mean, you know, I'd have a ham biscuit in an old paper bag and brown paper bag and the grease coming through on it. And I'm trying, you know, I'm almost embarrassed to take it to school, but I don't have nothing to eat, so I got to take it. And she'd be telling me, Bobby, you go to school, learn everything you can today and do the right thing, you know, because you can't go wrong doing right, boy. Just do the right thing. And that's what I heard from the time I was a little boy until I saw my grandmother at the White House, sitting in the Oval Office in the president's, and her father was a slave in Eastern North Carolina. And that's what I thought about when I saw my grandmother hugging President Nixon when I was being honored in Washington, when I was getting ready to leave the White House. He came into a big ceremony where they would, and he hugged my grandmother and she hugged him. I said, hey, there's nothing but God. Only God can do that. To take us from one little foot out of slavery into the White House and into the biggest boardrooms in the country. You know, in my time you know, in my company, that I still do a lot of work for different people, but I work for the richest people, the biggest companies on earth. And I mean, I just didn't go in and meet with the director of something, or, you know, I met with the CEOs and the boards. The boards were usually the guys on the boards who usually brought me in. And then they brought me into the boardroom to serve on their boards of directors of companies, large companies all over the world.
I've never met a person, I've met a lot of people over the years, and many of them you know, and many of you friends I know. I've never met a person who has so authentically mastered the art and science of relational capital as you. You are the master of relational capital. You have crossed political lines. You've served Republican presidents, Democratic presidents. You have served in corporate boardrooms where capitalism reigns. You have served social welfare where socioeconomic challenges are up front and center. You have worked with, may I say, the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich. What is that common thread that allows a person to do that, do it well, and do it so consistently?
Well, you know, you pardon me, but it goes back to my grandmother. She always told me, she said, Bobby, you be the best person you can be every day. She said, it doesn't make any difference whether it's that old drunkard in the street, and this is the way she talked to me, that old drunkard in the street, or whether you up there, way up on high with some of them big white people. That's what she used to talk about. And she said, it doesn't make any difference. She said, you treat them all just alike.
There's more to it than that, Bob. Give me a better answer. There's more to it than that. I think there is a sense of authenticity that emanates from one's soul and heart. You're driven by a sense of motivation that clearly transcends desire just for wealth or power or recognition or all of that. You've talked about it, you've talked about service and all that. But I have been with you hundreds of times. And especially, I'll give one example. The Horatio Alger Association of Distinguished Americans, which has 380 living members, probably some of the biggest names in America. I'll let you speak to that. Somehow, Bob and others managed to get me in there because they needed a foreigner. And these people, if we listed them, really, I cannot describe their wealth or their power, and the good they do, the enormous philanthropy they do. But I've watched these people to the one come to you with a great sense of admiration. What is that? How do the rest of us acquire that? How do we teach that to our students here who have provided more than 1 million hours of service in this community, to our faculty and staff who have given $2.5 million to our United Way? Yes, we do all of this. High Point University does an enormous amount in the community, but each of us strives to be the kind of person whose life matters, and matters to many in moments of exceptional need. In that cell in South Africa, in that place with Martin Luther King, when you were there and he died, in that place where your grandmother surely suffered so much through all that, but never let you see that side of her suffering. What is that, Bob? Help us understand. It comes through the book, but unlike a leadership book, it doesn't teach that. One sort of infers that from the pages of this book. And the book implies that. But it doesn't say, here are the three, you want to be a servant leader, here's what you got to do. Help us, help our students to truly acquire that in their being.
Well, I think there are several things. One, I wake up in the morning and think about how I can be the best person I can be today.
I know that, but what makes you get up in the morning and think that way? That's what I want to know. What is it? Is it the cereal you eat in the morning, Bob? Why do you get up in the morning thinking like that? Why don't you get up in the morning saying, I'm tired, I had a sleepless night, I have a headache, I have vertigo?
Well, I think it comes from my raising. And I have to attribute most of it, or all of it, to my relationship with God and what I was taught and what was imbued into me by my grandmother. I mean, day in and day out as a child, she would just show me different little things.
See, you know what I think, what makes you so beautiful? You don't know the answer to that question. And that's what makes you an extraordinary human being. That's what makes him an extraordinary human being. He doesn't know the answer to the question. Is just who he is. And so I think there are things we just can't teach. I think there are things we just have to see modeled in the lives of others. You've been a model for me. And I learned from you because of that. What's up with Oprah Winfrey?
Well, she just got back. She and Gil just got back from an extensive trip on a big yacht for 2 or 3 weeks, and she's doing fantastic. She's doing well. Her business as well, and you know I talk to Stedman every day, and
how did you and Stedman get connected?
Well, I met Oprah and Stedman at the same time through Maya Angelou.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that you met him at the same time.
I met him at the same time.
I thought Stedman first, then Oprah.
No.
You met him at the same time?
At the same time.
Then you hired him and underpaid him. And he still loves you, which is amazing. All right, so you met him at the same time through Maya Angelou, okay.
Maya Angelou, when Oprah went to Chicago to work, she called Dr. Angelou and said, look, I'd like to come and see you and get some advice. And I'd like to bring my new boyfriend with me. And that was Stedman.
Now we're going back 30, 35
Oh yeah, 30-some years, yeah. And so Maya called me and she said, I want you and Sally, my late wife, to come over for dinner because I have 2 young people coming to see me from Chicago. And one of them is a young lady who just got an opportunity for a new show in Chicago, and she has a new boyfriend, Stedman Graham, and they want to come down here, and I want you and Sally to meet them, so I'm going to cook a big dinner, and we're going to talk and eat. And Maya was a fantastic cook. So we went over there that evening, and Oprah and Stedman were there. We met them, we liked them, and all 5 of us sat around the table and we ate as much as we could possibly eat because Maya was a fantastic cook. And so we spent the rest of the evening talking, and we talked until about 11 o'clock. And so Maya says, look, I'm getting ready to go to bed, but I want you all to come back tomorrow. I'm gonna pick up some more food, I'm gonna prepare a lot of food, and we're going to talk all afternoon. To talk. So next day went back, we talked until the night. And I liked Stedman, and I asked him what he was doing. He was telling me what he's doing. And I said, look, you know, I've got a lot of things going on, and I'm doing some traveling. I said, do you ever travel? He said, yes, I travel some. And he said, I'm looking for another opportunity, because he was working he was a prison guard, I think, and and I liked him. And so I said, come and go with me. I said, I'm going to Paris. I said, I'm first going to Cote d'Ivoire. The president of Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, had invited me. I met him at the White House, and we liked each other, and so he sent a special invitation to me to come to Cote d'Ivoire and bring whoever I wanted to bring, and that he wanted to see me and talk to me, and I could play golf, and everything was going to be free, and the trip was going to be free. I could be, you know. So I said, man, it's a pretty good deal, you know. And so I took Stedman with me to meet President Bonnier, who was the president of the Ivory Coast, and then I told Stedman I'm going to leave there, and then we're going to go to Paris, because I have a group of business guys there who want me to come there and meet with them for a couple of days. And then I said, when we leave there, we're going down to South Africa. And he said, oh man, I'm going to stay with you. So I took him with me, and we bonded. I liked him. We bonded. And we've been close friends ever since.
And play golf all the time.
We play golf all over the world. St. Andrews, Augusta National, wherever there was a golf course in the world, we played it, you know, and all over Europe, Africa, and everywhere.
Yeah. Let's talk about Bob Brown, the person. You grew up, you were born in the city of High Point. Describe the neighborhood.
I was born about 15 blocks from here. And the neighborhood, all the streets were dirt. Most of the houses, just about all of them were old houses, and many of them were like the one I was born in. It was leaking, and I mean, it was a rough existence. Everybody had to have a garden because you had to eat, and we had several gardens. My grandmother would acquire land that was not acquirable because we would get a vacant lot and we'd have it plowed, she'd have it plowed up and we'd plant stuff on it, and whoever owned it, she would give them part of what we raised. And then we would can food, I mean, the whole summer. I mean, my grandmother was canning, and in our old house, there were shelves everywhere. And on those shelves were canned peaches, canned beans, canned everything. And so that's the way we made it. And not only did we make it, but she was constantly feeding other people. I mean, people would be sick in the community or something. My grandmother would take them a big old bowl or something, or fix some bread and beans and take them. And so one time I asked her, and I guess I was about 9 or 10 years old. You know, I thought at that point I knew everything. And so I asked my grandma, I said, "Mama, why are you taking all our food and giving it to all these old people around here? You know, shoot, we need this food ourselves." And she looked at me, just that strong look. And she said, "Boy, have you ever missed any meals here?" She said, "Hadn't God provided for us?" She said, "Don't we have food left over and everything?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "If I never teach you anything else, I'm going to teach you that it's all about giving and serving." She said, "God will rain down everything on you if you just give your life and what you do to Him."
And God has rained on you, there's no question.
He's rained on me big time.
Where did you go to school? In your case, it was thunderstorms.
thunderstorms.
Where did you go to school? Elementary school?
I went to Leonard Street, where the police department now is Leonard Street School.
Were you a good student?
I was a good student. I started being a good student in about the 4th grade. I had a teacher who lived right around here on Underhill. Her name was Della Ingram. And she took a liking to me, and she would tell me, "Robert, you're a smart young boy." She said, "I want to see you do some things." And she said, "Here's the way you get this right and that right and that right." And then the summer after I went on to the 5th grade, she had me up on Washington Street. Her husband was Dillon Ingram, and he had a business up there where he was selling snowball juice. You know, the juice that you put on snowballs? He had a place up there where he was selling the juice to the people who made the snowball.
I see.
And so she hired me. She told her husband to hire me. Now, I'm in the 4th grade. I'm going to the 5th grade to help them fill the bottles with the juice.
How much did he pay you?
Well, I made about $1 a day or something like that. Yeah. You know, that was big money. You know, for me, I wasn't making nothing. So
Tell us the story about the time that you were in charge of advertising for your high school newspaper, and you wanted to sell advertising, and something happened across town. What was it?
Well, what happened is that our paper was in trouble, and Mr. Burford, our principal, was going to shut it down. He said, the school can't afford this anymore because our budgets have been cut. And I said, "Mr. Burford, give me a chance." I was the advertising manager of the paper. And I said, "Give me a chance to go out." I said, "If I could leave school earlier for a couple of days, I'll go downtown and see if I can get somebody to advertise in our paper." And he said, "Little boy, you think you can do something like that? You don't know none of these people." I said, I think I can do that, Mr. Burford. And so the next day, I got on my bicycle, and I had been reading the papers. Even today, I read 8, 10 papers, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, High Point, Greensboro. I read papers. And I've done that all my life. And so I had a little bit of knowledge about who was doing what. And Senator Kirkman was the head of HPT&D Railroad. And so I said, let me go see him first. So I went by his office.
What was his name?
Senator O. Arthur Kirkman.
So, International Drive on the campus of High Point University says International Drive, and under it says O.A. Kirkman. That road used to be O.A. Kirkman, named for Mr. Kirkman, okay?
Yeah. He was a state senator and head of the railroad. So I walked in his office, and the secretary looked up and like, what do you want? I said, what are you doing in here, really? And so I said, I want to see the senator. And I said, I'm from William Penn High School. I'm the advertising manager and associate editor. And she said, well, he's busy. I said, Miss, it's very important. And so she went in his office, and she stayed in there a few minutes, and then she came out, and he came out behind her. And he looked at me, and he shook my hand. He said, young man, what can I do for you? And I told him, I said, our newspaper is about to go out of business because we can't raise enough money and ads or whatever to publish it. And I said, I came here I'm going around to different businesses to see if they would help us do that. And he said, come on into my office. So I went in his office, and he sat there and he started talking to me. He wanted to know about my life, who's your family, and what are you doing in school, how are you doing in school? And I told him. And he said, we're going to help you. So he gave me a check, I think, for about $50 or $100, something like that. It was more money than, like $50, $100, we can publish two tabs over for that, So, and then he said, I want you to come back to see me. He said, I'll give you this, but I want you to come back to see me. I want to keep up with you. And so periodically, all the way through high school, and when I went to college, I told him what I was doing, and then he just followed me. And then when I came back in the community, he was running for re-election as a state senator, and I would be helpful to him. And so he became a close friend. Bill McGuinn, of course, is his son-in-law.
Yeah.
And I got to know him, and he became a very close friend, gave me advice and counsel, opened many doors for me. And at the political level with the governor and everybody else.
Bob, you've been a big supporter of HBCUs, and when you were in the White House, you went out of your way to create possibilities for these schools. On the campus of Bennett College, one of two all-female African-American colleges in America, there's a facility named for Sally Brown. What do you think is happening with HBCUs, think Bennett's, think others, and the whole future of higher education as you see it? You've been very connected to many, many schools. You've been on the boards of many universities. What is your take on all that's going on?
Well, I think it's difficult because I think the concentration has not been on broadening their base. And there needs to be more emphasis on how you're going to get from square A to square B or to G or C. Because first of all, you've got to be in a position to raise the money to do the kinds of things that a university or college needs to do. You can't do it without money. I mean, you just can't walk around and wish that something's going to drop out of the sky. It's not. You got to work hard, and you got to make all the connections and everything. And they haven't done an effective job in doing that. They, many of them, some of them have, but many of them have not. And they need to regroup. There are schools like Morehouse College in Atlanta that was like the Harvard of the HBCUs. That is now in a little bit of trouble financially and otherwise. That's a school that Martin Luther King Jr. graduated from, and other of our notable human beings around the country. And so we need to further emphasize the things that they need to do. When I was at the White House those years, it was one of the things that I emphasized that we needed to do. We need to revamp what we were doing. I give you one for instance. They had, in 1969, when we took over the White House, everybody was saying that, oh, these HBCUs, historically black colleges, are going down the drain. They, you know, and they would come into me saying, Bob, you know, you've been around these schools, you went to one or two of them, and we don't know what to do. So I called in everybody who had any kind of money in the government into the Indian Treaty Room at the White House. I had all of them. I had my secretary send a note to all of them, tell them to be here at a certain time. And you know, if you're at the White House and you send a note out, if they don't show up, they better keep on going down the road somewhere, you know.
Wait a minute. So you're not as perfect as I thought you were. You got a little revenge in your heart there, Bob. You are normal. You are normal. Okay, so you got them all in the White House.
I got them all in the White House. And I asked, what can we do to help these HBCUs? We need to do something right away. And most of them say, well, Mr. Brown, they take new legislation and this and that and the other. So I saw that it wasn't getting anywhere. It was going to be a bureaucratic, they would run that bureaucratic game on me. And I wasn't about to take that. So I told all of them, I said, y'all pack up everything you got in here, and I just want all you to go back to your offices and write me a memo on what we're going to do, how we're going to do this. I said, I don't want to hear nothing about how we can't do it. I already know it can't be done or what hadn't been done. So they all left, and there was one guy there who called me back, and he told me, he said, Mr. Brown, he said, I know a way we can do that if I could come back and see you privately. I said, fine. So we cleared him, he came back to the White House. He sat down with me, he said, Mr. Brown, I've already written out the languages I think you ought to use and how you can do that yourself. He said, you don't need them anymore. I said, really, what on earth is this? He said, I've been in the government for a couple of decades, and I've served all this stuff, and I know. He said the law was passed under Lyndon Johnson in '68 to give money to the HBCUs, but they never got it because they couldn't do the matching fund requirement. There were, you know, like at least 150 million or something. And I said, how can we get that done? So he said, I'll help you do the language. So we got the language straightened out there in my office, and it was only 3 or 4 sentences that's still in the register now that I put in there to change it, because everybody had been telling me that you had to go back to Congress to change the law. Well, I said, no, that ain't gonna happen because the Congress, they ain't gonna change the law. Congress, please. So I wrote up this stuff on a piece of paper, and in every assistant's office to the president, during that time anyway, you had a little folder in there that said, by order of the President of the United States of America. And every top assistant to the president could sign that on behalf of the president. So I pulled it out, and I had one of my secretaries to type all that stuff in there. I said, you send this over, and I said, this is what I want to do. And it was $100 million in work-study money that was right there on the edge. And I said, I don't want it just for black schools. I want it for all schools that have a student body of 50% or more that came from poverty families. They're the people who ought to get the money. I don't care whether they're black or white. So I wrote that, and it's still in the books.
Good for you.
And $100 million.
Good for you.
$100 million.
They say we are what we eat, what we read, what we surround ourselves with. I choose to be extraordinary, and I get my start every day with daily motivation.
In our global economy where 1 million people can do what you can do, you have to compete with your differences. That's something extra that you possess. That something extra is your differential advantage, your DA. Are you passionate? That answer must be a resounding yes. Knowing and using and understanding your differential advantage will help you on your quest for excellence.
Sign up today to receive daily motivation, a short lesson each Monday with your video life coach, Nito Cobain, and inspirational quotes the rest of the week. It's relevant, quick, and free. Choose to be extraordinary.
You have played golf, some of the greatest golf courses in the world. And yet, there was a time in your life when you were a caddy at the local golf club, and it was not a very pleasant time of your life. You talk about that in this book. Can you take us back there?
Well, that was, some of those moments were painful, and but you know, if you believe in the good Lord and you let Him take your life, as my grandmother used to tell me, she said, take it to the Lord and let Him use you, let Him have it all, and He'll fix it. And she said, but He'll also put in your brain how you can fix it, but that's Him talking to you. So I would be there from time to time, trying to get caddy. There was several young black guys be hanging around out there. And, you know, they would, if you got a job caddying, then sometimes there would be all kinds of harsh language, you know, nigger this or nigger that, or some other kinds of things that was just unnecessary. But I used to go home and talk to my grandmother about it. I said, Mama, what on earth, why do I have to go through this? She said, don't worry about that, boy, just take it to the Lord and let Him handle it. She said, He'll fix it. He will fix it. And she said, He will raise you up where you can handle anything and where you can help Him fix it. That's what she used to tell me.
Why did you write this book?
Because I didn't want to leave this earth without giving an account of how God used me and how He lifted me up and how He took me all around the world to in the most powerful positions in the world, with the most powerful people in the world, who control money, arms, armies, everything. And I just came from over here about 15 blocks away in Burns Hill, one of the poorest families. I just wanted other young people, white, black, blue, green, whoever they are, young people, to know what they can do with their life. If God will do that for me, He'll do it for everybody, because we're all His subjects. He can do, I mean, if He can lift me out of what I came out of, I wasn't supposed to do anything. He can do anything. And that's what I started believing that as a young boy, because my grandmother would imbue that into me. She said, you go to school, you learn everything you can learn, and you just, if there's any problem, you just take them to the Lord. Pray over them, Bobby, and pray for the people who would be against you. So don't worry about that. She said, don't let these people get in your way. Don't let any of this stuff get in your way, boy. Just keep on moving.
Bob, you lived in the center of the civil rights movement, and you played an important role side by side with Martin Luther King in that regard. You understand the microcosmic feeling, emotion, essence of what that was all about, and that part of American history is all about. As you look back over the last 40, 50 years, and you see where we are today, how much progress have we made? What disappoints you about where we are today? What pleases you about where we are today?
Well, I'm pleased that there's more opportunity for young people, particularly for poor young people, whether you're white, black, blue, green. If you're poor, you need some help. If you're poor and black, it used to be you needed triple help, but now it's only, we're all in about the same category. You know, we just need help, and we all need to be reaching out to them. Because my grandmother used to say, she said, Bobby, when she saw me getting around the world and working with the President of the United States and everything, she said, boy, you're doing well now. But she said, I want you to remember one thing. I said, what's that, Mom? She said, you can't take none of that money with you. She said, you better use it for the greater good right here on earth, because when you get to that gate, you can't pay your way through there, you know? You got to. So it was, and that kind of thing lives with me every day of my life. I see things that I ought to be doing, whether it's here with you at the university, or whether it's with Horatio, Alger, with those children that we help that come out of some of the worst conditions on the face of the earth, and other things that I'm involved with. I almost never have enough time. I don't never have enough money. I've made a lot of money, but I've given it all away and spent it, you know, because I always find some other kind of thing that I need to do. You know, I keep going back to my grandmother. She was the heart and soul of my life. She said, Bobby, just let the Lord use you. Let him have his way with your life. She said, he'll take you where you can't even believe, boy. And I'm trying to figure out, we living on an old raggedy house over here and struggling every step of the way on dirt streets, you know, and everything.
But she was right. If you Google the word wealth, your name will be next to it. But if you Google the word kindness, your name will be next to it. And if you Google the word service, your name will be next to it. Because the wealthiest of us all is the person whose life is lived in balance and lived with purpose. Your life has been lived in balance and lived with purpose. And for that, I honor you. And on behalf of High Point University, I thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Bob Brown. Next week at the same time on High Point University's Leadership and Life Skills series, I hope you join me as I interview Condoleezza Rice, an accomplished author and our nation's former Secretary of State. I hope to see you then.